the camera. Give it off, down.
Give it. 1982's Tron is, while a groundbreaking film, not an incredibly great one. Even Disney, in its run-up to the release of Tron Legacy, has acted a bit embarrassed by the film, refusing to do so much as to re-release it on DVD. Apparently, it's better to remember fondly in the recesses of our minds than actually viewed again in preparation for its sequel. Even so, there's no denying that it was ahead of its time and went on to inspire many other films in the almost 3 decades since its release. In that spirit, it's high time to take a look at some of those films in this edition of If You Like, Tron. Film 1 is The Matrix, an obvious choice perhaps. One of the defining characteristics of Tron is the way Flynn actually manages to enter a computer bodily and attempt to take down its rulers from the inside. Now, The Matrix isn't exactly the same in that the freedom fighters from Zion never bodily enter the simulation that they're attempting to disrupt, but the basic ideas are fairly similar. And while The Matrix itself is intended to resemble the real world as closely as possible, a lot of the computerized vernacular that was used in Tron also pops up in the Matrix trilogy, especially in the notion that programs can have sentience and human forms to better interact with the actual humans that enter the simulation of the Matrix.
Training program designed to teach you one thing. If you are not one of us, you are one of them.
What are they?
Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system.
Now, although Tron is not technically about a virtual reality, a term that would only become popular in the early 90s, its cutting-edge graphical representation of the inside of a computer network obviously helped lay the groundwork for movies about virtual realities, such as The Matrix, as well as movies that aren't quite as good, like The Lawnmower Man. Now, I hopefully have never promised that all of these movies were going to be good, because The Lawnmower Man is definitely not a good film, but at the same time, it's an interesting artifact of the aforementioned early 90s notion of virtual reality. Anyone who read Time or Wired during that era was inundated with monthly stories about how VR was going to revolutionize our ability to socialize and interact with our computers. As such, it was only a matter of time before someone decided to make a movie based on the concept, and the truly terrible Lawnmower Man was born.
Accidents happen, that's all there is to it.
It's one of a string of awful films from the 90s that were based on Stephen King works such as Sleepwalkers and The Mangler. Although it's worth pointing out that King actually sued to have his name taken off of the film because it was so different than the short story it was based on. Indeed, The Lawnmower Man might be the worst of the lot, and in a weird way, its version of the inside of a computer might be even more dated than that of Tron, despite being made a full decade later.
Virtual reality is not just a simulation. It's a whole other world, a new electric dimension.
The plot revolves around a retarded man named Job who's made super smart by virtual reality sessions under the tutelage of Dr. Pierce Brosnan. But he's also made super evil at the same time. As Brosnan attempts to stop Job's plan to become what effectively would be Skynet, Job manages to kill all of his previous bullies and a bunch of other people in increasingly ridiculous ways, such as a mental lawnmower that shreds a dude's brain, a literal lawnmower that acts on its own, and using a big head projection to dissolve shadowy government agents. Now, is The Lawnmower Man any good? No. But like Tron, it's an interesting window into what the cutting-edge cultural ideas of computing were in the era in which it was made, and there's definitely a bit of Tron callback in the VR suits that Job winds up wearing. It may yet wind up being prescient if we all wind up loading into the mainframe via crazy suits and machines, but I'm betting not. Last but not least, we have the equally well-remembered The Last Starfighter, another early 80s film that might itself be heading for sequelville. The relationship is a bit more tenuous than the other films on this list, as Starfighter doesn't really have a lot to do with computers or cyberspace or virtual reality, but it shares with Tron an affinity for arcade games and the belief that computerized entertainment might be the gateway to a broader world than just a physical one that we perceive. If you haven't seen The Last Starfighter, it tells the story of young Alex Rogan who manages to beat an arcade machine called Starfighter in the trailer park where he lives. There's an interesting parallel between watching the "I'm going to beat the record" scene in Tron, which is kind of embarrassing, and the same scene that plays out in this movie. But the consequences of the act in Starfighter are much greater. Alex discovers that the arcade machine is simply a recruitment tool for the Star League, an actual group of aliens that require the assistance of able-bodied starship pilots to fight an intergalactic war. The Last Starfighter might not share much with Tron beyond the idea that computers hide a world greater than what we perceive, but it shares with that film the distinction of being one of the pioneers of computer-generated imagery. It was expensively used to recreate the outer space battles that normally would have been recreated with models and string. Still, it looked great at the time, and like Tron, rumors have been swirling that a sequel is coming down the pipe. I have a feeling though that they're going to wait to see how Legacy does at the box office before giving it a green light.
So long, Alex. Have fun. May the luck of the 7 pillars of Gulu be with you at all times.
So those are my choices for a few movies that might appeal to you if you still have fond memories of the original Tron. Obviously, there are other movies that play around to the same themes, and I expect you to give me your thoughts on that subject in the comments below. Do so right now, but be sure to stick around on screen for another installment of If You Like sometime soon.